Okay, so in general, this stuff that we're doing right now, this is all drafting. In the rhetorical inventory, as long as is you are, and remember, the rhetorical inventory is still open. Okay, so while the due date is already passed, the deadline has not passed. So I'm giving you plenty of time to revise that. The reason that I'm doing that is because this is everything you're doing right now is drafting. Drafting is a messy process. So in terms of the rhetorical inventory, the only thing that you needed to do that right was just to point out the rhetorical strategies. I mean, that's, you just enumerate the rhetorical strategies that you're seeing. That's all you were doing. You might have to give a little description of where it was, but normally in an if you were to do a rhetorical analysis for real, try to publish it someplace or something like that, nobody would ever see that part of your process. A classroom writing experience, it's an incredibly artificial writing scenario. The writing process is much messier than writing instruction makes it out to be. So what we need to do as writing instructors is we have to unnaturally dissect the writing process and then teach each piece of the process in a kind of independent way. But these things don't happen independently in a real writing situation. It's not like, now I do this and then I do this and then I do this and then I do this and look, now I have a paper. That's not really the way the writing process works. You're going to be jumping between parts of the process over the course of writing an essay. And sometimes for really, really good writers, some of the parts of the process happen in their head or happen while they're typing. They don't always happen in the way that we're having you do them in writing instruction. The reason that we have you do them the way that we have you do them in writing instruction is to make maybe a non-obvious part of the process obvious, so you can focus on that part of the process. Some part of the process that you may not be doing, which makes you a weaker writer, if we can point it out to you, this is part of the process, and have you focus on it and practice it, it now becomes part of your process. But in reality, it's not cut and dry. It's not as clean as writing instruction tends to make it out to be. Coming up with ideas, talking, it's a messy thing. These are drafting assignments. Under normal circumstances, nobody's ever going to see your drafting. This is an opportunity for you to think through your ideas step by step, so that your final draft is a stronger draft than it would be if you just sat down and tried to write it out. So in terms of the rhetorical inventory, all you're doing is pointing out the rhetorical strategies. And for some of these strategies, you may not know the names for them. You may see something going on and not be 100% sure what it is you're seeing. Like, this seems to be something, but I'm not sure how to name it. That's okay. In a rhetorical inventory, you can write it out without naming it. But it's really important to start thinking this way. And the vocabulary provides you a way to think about stuff. If you can name something, you can think about it more clearly. With the upcoming assignment, this supporting claims assignment, for those of you who struggle with paragraph structure, and I've already pointed out to some of you that you struggle with paragraph structure, this is going to be an important assignment for you, because what it's going to do is it's going to give you the opportunity to make claims and then try to support them using the STAR criteria, the different kinds of supporting strategies that are talked about in chapter 19 of the book. Of Everyone's an Author. If you have a tendency to write paragraphs that are just claim after claim after claim after claim, or you have a tendency to make a claim and then not know where to go after that, and so maybe you write just a couple of sentences that are essentially restating the claim in the same way, this next assignment is really important for you. You're going to make some claims taken from your rhetorical inventory. So you'll look at your rhetorical inventory. Oh, I made a claim about this. Go to your rhetorical inventory and either use that stuff to support that claim, or go back to your object of study and find specific things that do support that claim. So in terms of the rhetorical inventory, there's no one right way to format that. You're just enumerating rhetorical strategies. And maybe a little bit you might be theorizing, what does this mean? The upcoming assignment, which is another drafting assignment. This supporting claims assignment, this is a drafting assignment. What you're going to be doing is you're going to this is going to give you an opportunity to chunk out your essay. You have no thesis statement yet, and that's okay. The idea here is that in an essay, you only have so much space, so you can only make so many claims. So you're going to practice making those claims and supporting them. Those of you who write paragraphs that are lots of claims, or you run out of things to say, this is the assignment for you. This is going to give you the opportunity to go to the book, to look at the different kinds of support that you can give, and to just, so you'll write out your claims, and then you're going to start supporting those claims with evidence. I've already written a sample assignment. Now I'm going through and I'm enumerating what I'm doing, right? Here's a claim for that paragraph. Notice that for some of these things, I'm asking myself questions. Is this a single claim? Is this multiple claims? Should this be a concluding sentence of another paragraph? So I'm actually thinking my way through things. I want to give you guys the opportunity to see my process. Like, how do I get to a finished draft? So I've started this with my rhetorical inventory. You'll notice that what I'm doing in some of these comments is I'm just walking through my ideas. I'm actually, in some places in the actual text here, I'm talking to myself. And of course, the reason most often offered that it's cold outside is not a good reason alone to stay with someone, although the words storm and blizzard and a concrete image of the snow being up to your knees out there might all be rational. So I might have to reconsider this. Notice that I'm talking to myself here, right? This is not a finished assignment. This is a drafting assignment. I'm trying to figure out what's going to go into that finished assignment. So I don't want you guys stressing too much over this. What I'm trying to get you some experience doing is actually going through the writing process so you can get a decent final draft. If you talk to yourself a little bit, if I see, examples of you thinking to yourself, you can make comments like I'm making on here. You don't have to, but you can. My comments here are specifically for you guys. So in all of these, I'm talking to you, not to myself. In the text here, though, at places, I'm talking to myself. I'm trying to figure out my own ideas because I'm not 100% sure what my ideas are yet. Sometimes when you go into a writing situation, you may not be aware what may not start out with a thesis statement, in which case this supporting claims assignment, if that's the situation that you're in, is going to be very good for you. Because once you've written your claims, once you're done with the supporting claims assignment, you should have 3 relatively solid paragraphs that you can then just copy and paste into your rhetorical analysis, into the rough draft of your rhetorical analysis. Yeah, they might need to be a little revised or something like that, but you'll be part way done with your rhetorical analysis. If you think about the fact that rhetorical analysis is about 5 pages long, you got an introduction that'll probably be about a page, the conclusion that'll probably be half a page to a page. That leaves you only 3 pages to do stuff. So you may have a page and a half of information done with these 3 claims. The only formatting that I'm going to suggest, it's not something you absolutely have to do, I'm going to suggest that you double space the supporting claims, the upcoming supporting claims assignment, because it'll give you a better sense of the actual finished page number that you're going to have. 3 paragraphs, a double space should be at least a page and a half, maybe more. It may be as long as 2 pages, depending on how long your paragraphs are. But notice some of my paragraphs are pretty long and some of them are pretty short. So this one is about a half a page. This one is about a quarter of a page. There's no one right length for a paragraph. But you'll also notice up here, my first one, my appeals to logic. So I have a claim here. One, listen to the song makes it clear none of the arguments in this song are rational. And then I go on to this in terms of sufficiency. So now I'm expanding on the claim. Nothing is rational. Remember, when you're dealing with a rational argument, there's the STAR criteria: sufficient, typical, accurate, relevant. I'm focusing on the first part of that, sufficiency. She simply reiterates the same reason over and over again, which is some variation on what will people think. But then I immediately go into compare this to the variety of ways the wolf tries to persuade her. And I'm asking myself the question, this could be a second claim. Way down here, I have in my appeals to emotion, this whole paragraph here on ought, on the idea of ought, the word ought. The mouse never once intimates that she feels like she's in physical danger. She never directly mentions any moral reasons that she shouldn't stay with the night with the man, although she does say that she ought to say no, no, no. But her previous focus on the concerns of her family and the later focus on her reputation suggests that this ought is less an ought about the innate moral rightness or wrongness of her actions than a concern about appearances. Notice that this feels like it belongs up here with this opening paragraph here. So this could feasibly be two separate paragraphs. Again, I'm trying to give you guys a sense of my process as I'm working through my process so that I can show you that this is not as clean a process as writing instruction likes to make it out to be. This supporting your claims assignment, what I'm trying to get you to do is understand how to develop a paragraph. Get you some experience actually developing a paragraph by making a single claim and then supporting that claim through the different strategies taught in chapter 19 of the book. Description, explanation, examples, quotes. All of these things are different strategies to support a claim that you're making. So this is a support, this is interpretation, this is analysis, but there's also something of a little claim in there. So I have to be careful. However, all of these fit the theme that's expressed in this claim, right? One defends the ethos, so maybe this is merely just a repetition and a restatement of the original claim. I'm gonna have to go in and figure that out. And for me, this is a little harder because I'm trying to write this so that you guys can see my process, but I'm also trying to point out to you guys the things that I'm trying to teach you in the book. If you go into lesson 11, you're going to see the rhetorical inventory and supporting claims instructions. And in that, I have given you a sample text of a rhetorical inventory and a sample text of the supporting claims assignment. I want you to look at what I'm doing here: appeals to logos, appeals to character, credibility, appeals to emotion or pathos, right? What I'm doing in this is I've done multiple claims and multiple supports. I'm chunking it out. This is the drafting stage. A lot of this stuff is not going to make it into my final. Some of it might be combined. Some of it might be deleted entirely. All you need to do, according to the assignment, is try to pick 3 claims and support those claims with evidence. And that's really it. All you need to do for the assignment is get 3 claims and support those claims with different kinds of evidence. But I want you to actually think out those claims. These 3 claims, this should be an assignment that helps you write the rhetorical analysis. So by the time you're done with this supporting claims assignment, you should be almost mostly done with your rhetorical analysis, at least the rough draft of your rhetorical analysis. It should give you 3 claims that you can make. You're going to support those claims with evidence or description or examples or quotes, drawing from chapter 19 of the book. And then you'll have a rough draft of at least 3 paragraphs that you can put in your rhetorical analysis. So I'm trying to help those of you who struggle with paragraphing. I'm trying to help you in anticipation of the rhetorical analysis. So this rhetorical analysis we are building over several weeks. And of course, later we're going to talk about writing a multi-sentence thesis statement as we go into the rough draft of this. But let's say I decide to focus on character and appeals to emotion. I might say something like, in this song, the character of the mouse is trying to convince herself that she should go home. However, because she doesn't really want to go home, she does this poorly by using fallacies, specifically ad populum fallacies. That could be 1 sentence in my multi-sentence thesis statement. And now I have 1 sentence in my thesis statement that refers specifically to 1 section in the body of my essay, this section right here. So really, to reverse engineer a thesis statement, you're taking the major claims that you make throughout the essay and you're just writing them into your thesis statement. Now you might want to clear that up a little bit before you write your final. And because you've never done them before, there's always going to be some clunkiness to what you're doing. But as you get better and better at them, your writing will get better. So yeah, your thesis statement might be a little inelegant. The composition of your paragraphs might be a little inelegant in the final draft. But the important thing is going to be, if you write 3 claims and you defend those claims the way the book is telling you to defend those claims or support and develop those claims, you're going to write some pretty strong, well-organized paragraphs. And seeing that you can do that, my hope is that it will encourage you to continue improving as a writer. I was talking about reverse engineering a thesis statement, right? Sometimes that's not going to happen, particularly in something like an opinion piece or a short analysis, any kind of short writing. You may go into it already knowing what your thesis statement is. And now it's just a matter of, defending that idea. So some of the things, let me share my screen again with you really quick. Some of the things that I'm saying in here, like I'm going to look at this one right here. In this respect, there's definitely a larger argument going on here, one that defends the ethos of the sexual revolution and sexual liberation by encouraging the mouse, and by extension, the audience in general, to throw off the sexual conventions, the hang-ups, the old out, as the song says, and embrace one's desire regardless of what the neighbors might think. This is thesis kind of stuff. This claim right here, this will probably be in some way a thesis-like statement for the moral analysis, because now I'm not just analyzing the argument, I'm transcending the argument and jumping into the moral implications of the argument, which, as I said before, is the key distinction between a rhetorical analysis and a moral analysis. That the rhetorical analysis is just about the rhetoric, just about the argument. The moral analysis extends that to address some potential moral implications of your analysis. But both of them are still analysis, and both of them are still rhetorical analysis. The reason that I started having students or giving students the option to write a moral analysis is because I noticed that a lot of students can't disconnect themselves from the moral implications of an argument that they've analyzed. And I wanted to let you guys know there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with jumping into the moral implications of an argument. But you also don't have to do that. You can just focus on the argument. If I wanted to write a moral analysis rather than just a rhetorical analysis, this right here would probably be thesis-y. I probably have to revise it significantly. Oh, that's not it. It's this one down here. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. I'm starting to address the moral implications. There's definitely a larger argument going on in this song, one that defends the ethos of the sexual revolution and sexual liberation by encouraging the mouse, and by extension, the audience in general, to throw off the sexual conventions, the hang-ups, the old out, as the song says, and embrace one's desire, regardless of what their neighbors might think. That could work as a rough thesis, or as part of a rough thesis, at least a line in a rough thesis, to a moral analysis. Many of you will probably already have some kind of a thesis statement going on, but I don't want those of you who don't to be afraid that you're not going to be able to write this essay just because you're not sure what your thesis statement is yet. If you're not sure what your thesis statement is, then you start with the claims and you write your claims, which is what we're doing in this supporting claims assignment, and then you reverse engineer your thesis. And you don't worry about the moral analysis, although you could. You just worry about the rhetorical analysis. And so again, that goes back to what I said about this being very unnatural. For some of you, you'll already know what you're arguing, and it's just a matter of trying to find the evidence to support a thought that you already had. For some of you, you have no idea what you're going to say about it. So now you're actually looking for things to say. Both of these approaches work to short writing. Those of you who are going into the sciences, once you get into the sciences, this process necessarily has to change. Any of you who plan to go on going on to a master's degree, this process necessarily has to change. You cannot, in scientific writing, start by thinking your thesis is correct, which is why scientific writing starts with a hypothesis. I think this might be right. Let me try to disprove myself. That's the scientific method. You try to disprove your ideas. In argumentative writing, like what we're doing, you try to defend your ideas, support your ideas, whatever idea you have. Both of these have issues. Just because you can't disprove something doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. This is one of the weaknesses of the scientific method, but it's a much stronger methodology than the other way is, which is, I have this idea, I'm going to prove myself right. Because when you go out into an argumentative mode and you try to prove yourself right, you fall into all kinds of potentially fallacious traps. That's the biggest weakness with argument, the way that we tend to engage in argument in the public sphere. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I had a question asked. Is there any advice you can give to find fallacies? I don't know why, but I have a hard time finding them. Yes, this is an excellent question. So remember the STAR criteria: sufficient, typical, accurate, relevant. If you see a failure in any one of these, you're probably in fallacy territory. So for example, let's say somebody makes an outrageous claim, but only provides one piece of evidence or no evidence at all for the claim that they're making. You're probably in fallacy territory. If we look at the claim that I'm making here, one of the claims that I make is that none of the arguments in this song are rational. I go right into immediately, I start explaining that in terms of sufficiency, the mouse character simply repeatedly reiterates the same reason over and over again, which is some variation on what will people think. She fails to sufficiently defend her idea, which is at least partially what makes her argument unpersuasive to herself, but also to the audience, to us, the listener. And I suggest that there are other things that she could say down here. This is a claim that the idea of keeping up appearances, this is a claim that is merely implied. There is no serious attempt to thoroughly address traditional sexual morality, only an attempt to straw person that morality in the characterization of the mouse. The reason most often offered, that it's cold outside, is not a good reason alone to stay with someone. Her previous focus on concerns of her family and the later focus on her reputation suggests that this ought is less an ought about innate moral rightness or wrongness of her actions than a concern about appearances, what others might think. So this is an ad populum. If she's only using one idea, right? So one of the things that we don't see in the song is the woman saying, well, you know, sex outside of marriage is wrong, so I shouldn't stay here. I mean, not only am I concerned about what other people think, I don't trust you. I don't know who you are. We don't have a relationship. I don't really want to have a sexual relationship with you. So I'm not consenting to. None of that happens. The only thing she argues, the only support that she offers to convince herself not to stay is, what will people think? That's an ad populum. So once you find out that there's only one piece of evidence being offered to defend an idea, or an argument rather, that should be suspect immediately. So it has failed the STAR criteria. In terms of sufficiency, what other people think is not a sufficient reason not to stay, especially because that reasoning is fallacious. And it is that insufficiency, that lack of reason, that lack of sufficient reason, enough reason, that actually helps us locate the fallacy there. You could do the same thing with the strategies of ethos and the strategies of pathos, right? So if you're seeing word choice that's manipulative, you've probably got a fallacy. If it's all word choice and no logic, all emotionally charged words, but no reasons, no evidence, you've probably got a fallacy. If it's all credibility, like somebody saying, you should believe me because I'm an authority on this topic, and that's the only thing that they use to defend their ideas, you've probably got a fallacy. The way that you find fallacies, the way that you see that fallacies are at work, is by seeing the ways in which logic is not at work. And you do that by examining the STAR criteria. They fail in some area in terms of the STAR criteria. And you know you've probably got a fallacy going on. Good luck on this. And again, shoot me an email if you need any help. Bye, you guys.